My daughter is losing her surgery slot, I said, loud enough for every nurse, resident, donor, and frightened family in the scheduling lobby to hear, and you are giving it to the woman you have been sleeping with. My husband did not deny the affair. He only stepped in front of Vanessa's wheelchair and looked at me as if I were the embarrassing problem in the room. Sophie can wait 48 hours, Adrian said. Vanessa cannot. Behind the glass wall, our 8-year-old daughter lay beneath a heated blanket with oxygen tubing under her nose. Her lips were already turning pale around the edges. The monitor above her bed showed a rhythm I remembered too well. In my previous life, I had begged. I had grabbed Adrian's sleeve with both hands and pleaded with him to reconsider. I had let him tell the nurses I was hysterical. I had let the hospital security officers remove me from the scheduling desk. I had trusted his promise that Sophie would be safe until Monday. She had gone into cardiac arrest 11 hours later. This time, I did not touch him. I opened the patient portal on my phone and took screenshots of the original confirmation, the revised schedule, and the new risk classification entered under Adrian's account. Urgent had become semi-urgent. A red warning had become a yellow recommendation. My child's life had been edited with 3 clicks. Vanessa pressed a manicured hand to her chest. She wore a hospital robe over silk pajamas and the diamond bracelet on. Her wrist had been paid for from my joint checking account. Elena, please, she whispered. This is not the place. You are right. I took off my wedding ring. Adrian's face changed for the first time. I placed the ring on top of the printed surgery schedule between us. This is not the place to discuss our marriage, I said. It is the place to document what you did. A murmur moved through the lobby. Adrian lowered his voice. You have no idea how dangerous her condition is. I know exactly what her chart says. Vanessa's eyes flickered. Her atrial septal defect had been monitored for 6 years. Her procedure was necessary, but it was elective. She had no unstable rhythm, no oxygen crisis, and no documented deterioration. The only urgent thing about her surgery was that she wanted to recover before Northbridge Medical Center's annual donor gala. Sophie had already suffered 2 ventricular arrhythmias that week. Dr. Priya Shah, Sophie's surgeon, stood near the nurse's station with her. Jaw locked, she had not approved the change. I could see that before she said a word. Adrian saw me looking at her. Elena, he warned, do not drag my staff into a when you changed a patient's medical classification. His expression hardened. You are not a doctor. No, I said, I am the person who knows where medical decisions become legal evidence. For 9 years, Adrian had treated my former career like a hobby I had outgrown. He had forgotten that before I packed school lunches and slept in pediatric waiting rooms, I had negotiated hospital acquisitions, investigated compliance failures, and written the debt agreement that kept Northbridge from closing 7 years earlier. He had forgotten because I had made forgetting convenient. I turned to Dr. Shah. Do you still believe Sophie needs surgery today? Adrian answered for her. Priya reports to me. Dr. Shah looked at him, then at the child behind the glass. Yes, she said. She does. The lobby went silent. I pressed the call button beside Naomi Chen's name. Then I opened the banking app and disabled every transfer from our joint investment account. Adrian's phone vibrated almost immediately. His eyes dropped to the notification. What did you do? I stopped paying for your mistakes. I looked past him at Vanessa, and I am taking my daughter out of this hospital. Adrian gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You cannot just take her. I run this cardiac center. I met his eyes. Not for much longer. The first thing I learned after dying was that memory did not return gently. It struck like a defibrillator. One moment, I had been standing in a hospital lobby with Adrian's stunned face in front of me. The next, I remembered Sophie's funeral dress, white cotton, small pearl buttons, a cardigan because my mother-in-law had said the chapel would be cold. I remembered Adrian standing beside the grave with one hand on Vanessa's back. I remembered him telling me that grief had made me irrational. I remembered the settlement Northbridge offered in exchange for silence. I had refused it, then lost the lawsuit because the most important records had vanished. Adrian testified that Sophie's condition had been stable. Vanessa testified that she had never asked for priority. The hospital produced a medical chart showing that the delay had been reasonable. The original risk assessment had disappeared. The schedule change logs had been overwritten. The security footage had been routinely deleted. By the time I understood what they had done, no one cared that I had once known how to fight institutions. I had been sleepless, medicated, and alone. Adrian had already filed for divorce. Vanessa had moved into the house where Sophie's drawings still hung on the refrigerator. 18 months later, I drove through a red light after seeing a little girl in a yellow coat on the sidewalk. A truck hit the driver's side of my car. Then I opened my eyes in the scheduling lobby and heard Adrian say Sophie could wait. I had not been given another life, so I could repeat my first mistake. I ended the call to Naomi after giving her one instruction: send a preservation notice to Northbridge Medical Center. Every server, every camera, every access log, every version of Sophie's chart. Name Adrian Cole, Vanessa Reed, the surgical scheduling office, and the cardiac administration department. Naomi did not ask why I was speaking as if a lawsuit already existed. She had known me before I became Mrs. Adrian Cole. I'll need written authorization, she said. You will have it in 2 minutes. I opened my email and sent her the power of attorney I kept for Sophie's medical care. Then I forwarded the original surgical confirmation, the revised notification, and every message Adrian had sent me that morning. His last text read, Vanessa's situation changed overnight. Do not create a scene. Sophie is stable. I had created no scene. I had created a record. Adrian stepped closer. Who are you calling? My attorney. You called a lawyer before speaking to me. I spoke to you in my first life. The words escaped before I could stop them. His brows drew together. What? Nothing. I turned toward the nurse's station. Please print the complete audit history for Sophie Cole's chart. The scheduling coordinator, a young man named Caleb, looked at Adrian. Adrian shook his head once. Caleb's hand stopped above the keyboard. That information requires an administrative request, he said. I am her legal guardian. The current chart is available through the portal. I did not ask for the current chart. I asked for the audit history. Elena, Adrian said, you are disrupting patient care. No patients are being treated in this lobby. Vanessa shifted in her wheelchair. A nurse held a clipboard against her chest and stared at the floor. I knew some of the people watching us. They had brought Sophie stickers, popsicles, and blankets during previous admissions. They had also learned that Adrian's displeasure could destroy a schedule, a promotion, or a fellowship. Fear made decent people quiet. I did not blame them for being afraid. I simply stopped depending on their courage. I took a photograph of the electronic scheduling board behind Caleb. Sophie's initials had been removed from operating room 4 at 10:00 a.m. Vanessa's initials had replaced them. The change time showed 6:42 a.m. Adrian had told me at 7 o'clock that the operating room was delayed because of equipment maintenance. Another lie. Save Dr. Shah approached me slowly. She was 47, precise, and almost impossible to intimidate in an operating room. Outside it, she still worked under Adrian. We should speak privately, she said. No, Adrian replied, you should prepare for Ms. Reed's procedure. Dr. Shah did not look at him. Elena, Sophie's oxygen saturation dropped again at 5 o'clock this morning. I ordered a repeat echocardiogram. Did you change her risk classification? No. Did you approve delaying her surgery? No. Adrian's face reddened. Priya, she finally faced him. You used my credentials to acknowledge the schedule change. I used departmental authority. You entered a clinical decision under my treatment plan. I made an operational adjustment. You changed my patient status. The distinction mattered. Operational adjustments moved rooms and staff. Clinical decisions changed how quickly a patient was supposed to receive care. Adrian had crossed the line because the administrative scheduling system would not allow a stable elective patient to replace an urgent pediatric case without a clinical downgrade. He had not merely chosen Vanessa. He had altered the record to make his choice appear medically justified. I looked at Dr. Shah. Will you put that in writing? Adrian moved between us. This conversation is over. No, I said, our marriage is over. The conversation is evidence. He stared at me. For years, I had measured every sentence around his temper. I had softened questions so he would not hear criticism. I had accepted corrections about subjects I understood better than he did because peace at dinner seemed more important than being right. The woman he knew would have been crying by now. The woman he knew had already buried her child. He reached for my arm. I stepped back before he could touch me. Do not. The single word stopped him more effectively than shouting would have. I walked into Sophie's room. Her eyes opened when she heard the door. Mom, I'm here. She tried to sit up. The monitor spared. I placed one hand behind her shoulders and eased her back. Dad said I was going to the special room today. You are. Why is Ms. Vanessa wearing a hospital dress? Children noticed what adults worked hard to conceal. She needs a procedure, too. Is she more sick than me? My throat tightened, but I kept my face calm. No. Sophie watched me for a long moment. Then why does she get my room? Through the glass wall, Adrian stood beside Vanessa speaking to the nurse who would accompany her upstairs. He did not look toward his daughter. I pulled the privacy curtain closed. She is not taking your chance to get better, I said. We are going somewhere else. Does Dad come? I had lied to Sophie in my first life. I had told her Adrian was handling important work. I had told her he loved her even when his actions made that love impossible to feel. I had protected his image because I believed a child needed an unbroken picture of her father. What she had needed was one adult who told her the truth without making her responsible for it. Dad made a decision I do not agree with, I said. I am making a different one. You do not have to solve anything between us. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. Are you mad at me? The question broke something cleanly inside me. No. I leaned close enough for her to see my eyes. None of this is because of you. You are not too sick, too expensive, too difficult, or too much. You are my daughter. Protecting you is not a burden. She nodded, but tears gathered beneath her lashes. I held her until the monitor slowed. Then I called Children's East Medical Center. In my previous life, I had learned after Sophie's death that Dr. Shah had quietly contacted a surgeon there, Dr. Samuel Ortega. When Adrian changed the schedule, a pediatric cardiac bed had been available until noon. No one told me because Adrian canceled the inquiry claiming the family wished to remain at Northbridge this time. I called before he could. Dr. Ortega's coordinator placed me on hold for less than 30 seconds. We received Dr. Shah's images yesterday, she said. We can accept Sophie as an emergency transfer, but transport needs to leave within the hour. Reserve the bed. I need confirmation from the attending physician. You will have it. I opened the curtain. Dr. Shah was waiting outside. Children's East has a bed, I said. Relief moved across her face, followed by fear. Adrian will block the transfer. Will you sign it? If I sign against his order, he may suspend my privileges. Will Sophie survive 48 hours here? Dr. Shah looked through the glass at my daughter. I cannot promise that. Then choose the risk you can live with. She closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, she held out her hand for the transfer form. I'll sign. The next 30 minutes moved quickly. Naomi emailed the legal preservation letters to Northbridge's General Counsel, Risk Management Department, Information Technology Director, and Liability Insurer. The automatic receipts arrived one by one. Dr. Shah entered a new note into Sophie's chart. Transfer recommended due to urgent need for surgical intervention and current lack of timely operating room access. Maya Lewis, the charge nurse, printed Sophie's medication administration record and placed it in the transfer packet. I photographed every page before the envelope was sealed. Adrian entered the room as the transport team arrived with a stretcher. What is this? A transfer? No. He said it with the confidence of a man who had forgotten that authority required consent. The lead paramedic checked the form. We have an accepting physician and attending authorization. I am the cardiac center director, Adrian said. The transfer is canceled. I am Sophie's mother and legal guardian, I replied. I consent. I am her father. You are also the administrator who reassigned her operating room to your mistress. That is a conflict of interest. The paramedic's eyes moved between us. Adrian lowered his voice. You are frightening her. Sophie was watching him from the bed. I did not answer for her. She did. Dad, why did you give my surgery to Ms. Vanessa? No medical language could hide him from that question. Adrian looked at our daughter. His expression softened, but he still did not walk to her bedside. Vanessa needs help today, he said. Your doctors are keeping you safe. Dr. Shah said I need surgery. Dr. Shah is being overly cautious. Dr. Shah stood in the doorway. No, she said. I am being accurate. Adrian turned on her. You are relieved of Sophie's case. You cannot retroactively remove my medical opinion. I can suspend your access while this is reviewed. Maya's hand tightened around the transfer packet. The paramedic cleared his throat. We need to move. Adrian reached for the stretcher rail. I stepped between him and Sophie. If you physically interfere with this transfer, the hallway cameras will record it. My attorney has already placed the hospital on notice to preserve them. His hand stopped for the first time that morning. He understood that the usual version of events would not belong only to him. Vanessa appeared at the end of the hall, now walking beside her wheelchair. She looked healthy enough to argue with a nurse about the private recovery suite. When she saw the transport team, she hurried toward us. Elena, I never wanted this. Then give the slot back. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. That was the truth of her regret. She regretted being seen. She did not regret receiving what she had demanded. Adrian looked at her, then at the hospital staff gathering nearby. Elena is making this personal, he said. I looked at the woman he had chosen and the child he had asked to wait. It was personal when you decided the safest life to gamble with was your daughter's. The transport team pushed Sophie toward the elevator. I walked beside her. Adrian followed us. You cannot take her without discussing this with me. I discussed her surgery with you for 3 months. You are destroying our family. No, I am refusing to let you bury another part of it. The elevator doors before stepping inside. I handed Maya my wedding ring. Please place this in an evidence envelope with the surgery schedule. Maya stared at the ring. Why? Because I want a record of the moment I stopped pretending this was still a marriage. She swallowed and nodded. The elevator doors closed between Adrian and me. Sophie's stretcher filled most of the space. The paramedic watched her monitor. Dr. Shaw stood at the back with the packet against her chest. As we descended, my phone filled with notifications. Adrian had tried to move money from our joint investment account. The transaction had been denied. Another alert showed an attempted payment of $18,600 to a concierge surgical practice connected to Vanessa's procedure. Denied. Then a message appeared from Adrian. You have lost your mind. Bring Sophie back before you cause permanent damage. I saved it. I did not respond. At the ambulance entrance, Naomi called, the preservation notices are delivered. She said, Northbridge General Counsel wants to know whether we are alleging malpractice. We are alleging nothing yet. What are we doing? Keeping Sophie alive. And after that, I watched the Northbridge sign through the rear ambulance doors. 7 years earlier, the hospital had nearly collapsed under $400 million in debt. I had been a junior partner at Hartwell then. I spent 6 months negotiating the rescue agreement. The private equity owner received time. The lender received collateral. Hartwell Health Partners received a right of first offer. Northbridge violated its patient safety covenants or concealed a regulatory event. At the time, the clause had been a technical protection. Now it felt like a door I had built for myself without knowing I would need it. Naomi, I said, call Miriam Alvarez. There was a pause. You have not spoken to Hartwell's investment committee in 4 years. They still answer when I invoke beneficiary review. What do you want them to review? Northbridge's debt, ownership, insurance exposure, and regulatory disclosures. The paramedic closed the ambulance doors. Naomi's voice became very quiet. Elena, are you thinking about suing the hospital? No. The siren started. I looked through the small window at Adrian standing beneath the emergency entrance canopy. Vanessa had reached him. She touched his arm, and he did not pull away. I want to know what it costs to buy the entire place. The ambulance had traveled 6 blocks when Sophie's monitor alarmed. Her body jerked beneath the straps. The rhythm on the screen became a rapid, uneven line, ventricular tachycardia. The paramedic said, Dr. Shah was already moving. She pushed medication through Sophie's arm while the driver accelerated. Sophie's eyes found mine. Mom, I'm here. I'm scared. I know. Her fingers were cold. I wrapped both hands around them while Dr. Shah called out numbers. The siren rose around us. In my previous life, Sophie had been alone when this happened. I had been downstairs arguing with Billing because Adrian had told the nurses not to call him unless she became unstable. By the time I reached the room, 6 people were pressing on her chest. This time, I was holding her hand when her heart tried to leave. You stay with me, I told her. Her eyes fluttered. The monitor screamed. Then the medication worked. The rhythm slowed. Dr. Shah let out one controlled breath. The paramedic looked at me. If we had waited another hour, he did not finish. He did not need to. I took a photograph of the monitor strip when it printed. Another piece of evidence, another version of my daughter who had almost become a memory. At Children's East, a surgical team waited at the ambulance bay. Dr. Ortega introduced himself while walking. We reviewed the images. The conduit obstruction is worse than yesterday. We need to operate as soon as anesthesia clears her. How soon? Within the hour. Sophie was pushed through double doors. I followed until a nurse stopped me outside pre-op. Adrian arrived 23 minutes later. He was still wearing his Northbridge identification badge. Vanessa was not with him. He walked toward me with a legal administrator from Northbridge and 2 hospital security officers from Children's East. The administrator held a folder. Mrs. Cole, Dr. Cole has expressed concern that this transfer occurred without appropriate parental consultation. I looked at Adrian. You brought a lawyer before asking whether Sophie survived the ambulance ride. His face changed. What happened? She developed ventricular tachycardia. That can happen during transport. Can also happen while a child is waiting for the operating room you gave away. He glanced toward the surgical doors. I need to review her status. You are not her treating physician here. I am her father. Then behave like one. The administrator stepped forward. Both parents generally share medical decision-making authority. Not when one parent has an active professional conflict and the treating surgeon has documented an emergency. I handed her a copy of Dr. Shah's transfer note and the ambulance's rhythm strip. Your hospital's director overrode the attending physician, downgraded an urgent pediatric patient, reassigned the operating team to his romantic partner, and attempted to prevent transfer after an accepting facility was secured. Would you like to continue this conversation without your own outside counsel? The administrator stopped. Adrian stared at me as if someone else was speaking through my mouth. You planned this. I planned our daughter's surgery for 3 months. You planned to give it away. His jaw tightened. Vanessa's procedure had complications we did not anticipate. What complications? I cannot disclose another patient's information. You disclosed enough when you used her condition to justify changing Sophie's care. She has a structural defect. She has had it for 6 years. His eyes narrowed. How do you know that? Because you paid for her consultations from our account. For once, he had no immediate answer. A nurse emerged from pre-op. Mrs. Cole. I turned. We are ready for consent. Adrian stepped forward. I am coming. The nurse checked her tablet. Only the parent listed by the patient's legal representative can enter. I am her father. I looked at him. You can sit in the waiting room. Elena, you wanted her to wait. Now you can. I followed the nurse through the doors. Behind me, Adrian said my name again. I did not turn around. The laughter, authority, and disbelief from Northbridge had already stopped. The only sound that mattered was Sophie breathing. Sophie was awake when I entered pre-op. A disposable cap covered most of her hair. Someone had given her a stuffed fox with a Children's East shirt. She held it against her chest. Is Dad outside? Yes. Is he mad? He is worried. That was true, even if his worry had arrived late and mixed with anger. Are you mad? Yes. She studied my face. At me. Never at you. The anesthesiologist reviewed the procedure. Dr. Ortega would remove the failing conduit, reconstruct the narrowed pulmonary artery, and replace the valve. Because of the arrhythmia in transport, they might need temporary pacing support. The risks were not small: bleeding, stroke, rhythm failure, death. In my previous life, those risks had remained abstract until they became a coffin. This time, I signed each page with a steady hand. Sophie watched the pen. Will it hurt? When you wake up, your chest will hurt. They will give you medicine. I will be there. You promise? Promise. Promise was not a prediction. It was a commitment to be present no matter what happened. The nurse unlocked the stretcher wheels. Sophie reached for me. I bent over her. I love you, she whispered. I love you more than every hospital in the world. That made her smile. The doors closed behind her. Only then did my knees weaken. I sat in the nearest chair and pressed my palms together until the shaking stopped. Naomi arrived with a laptop, 2 legal pads, and the expression she used when a situation was both terrible and useful. She hugged me once. Then she sat down. Tell me everything from the beginning. I told her about the original surgical date, Adrian's maintenance lie, the revised portal notification, Vanessa's arrival, Dr. Shah's objection, the risk downgrade, the transfer, and the arrhythmia. I did not tell her I had lived it before. Some truths were too large to be useful in court. Naomi took notes without interrupting. When I finished, she opened a file. We have a problem. Only one. Adrian filed an emergency motion in family court. For what? An order preventing either parent from making unilateral major medical decisions. I almost laughed. He made a unilateral medical decision this morning. Yes, that is why filing this may be the most generous gift he has ever given you. She turned the laptop toward me. His affidavit described me as emotionally unstable, financially impulsive, and medically uninformed. He claimed I had removed Sophie from a qualified facility against the recommendation of the cardiac center director. He did not mention that he was the director. He did not mention Vanessa. He did not mention Dr. Shah. He wants the court to order Sophie back to Northbridge. Naomi said, she is in surgery. We filed an opposition 20 minutes ago. I attached the transfer note and ambulance strip. The judge scheduled a remote hearing for 4 o'clock this afternoon. He did this while she was being prepared for open-heart surgery. He did it because control matters to him more when he is afraid. I looked through the waiting room glass. Adrian sat across the corridor with his elbows on his knees. He had removed his hospital badge, but the outline of it remained on his shirt pocket for years. I had mistaken control for competence. Adrian always knew which restaurant to choose, which specialist to call, which school Sophie should attend, and which version of an argument should become family history. He rarely raised his voice. He did not need to. He arranged the world until resistance appeared unreasonable. Naomi followed my gaze. Has he ever threatened you physically? No. Controlled access to money. He managed most shared accounts. I retained separate trust assets. Monitored your movements. We shared location because of Sophie's appointments. Used her medical condition to keep you from working. I hesitated. He said consistency was important. That was not my question. Yes. Naomi wrote something down. Turn off location sharing. I opened the family app. Adrian's icon showed him 20 yards away. I disabled access. Then I changed the passwords to my private email, cloud storage, patient portal, and trust account. The waiting room doors opened. Adrian walked in. You blocked my location access. Yes, you cannot disappear with my child. She is in an operating room 30 feet away. You know what I mean? I do. That is why I turned it off. He looked at Naomi. This is a family matter. Naomi did not look up from her laptop. It became my matter when you filed an emergency custody motion. His mouth tightened. I am trying to protect Sophie from the surgery she needed, from Elena making decisions out of anger. I stood. Say Vanessa's name. He blinked. What? You keep calling this an argument, a scheduling issue, and a medical disagreement. Say the name of the woman who received our daughter's operating room. This is not about Vanessa. Then say her name. He looked toward the corridor. Lower your voice. No. Several families sat nearby. I did not shout, but I did not protect him with silence either. Say her name. Adrian. Vanessa. And what is she to you? His face hardened. Not here. That answer is why we are here. He moved closer. I made a medical judgment. You made a personal choice and altered a medical record to support it. You have no proof I altered anything. I have the portal versions, the scheduling board, Dr. Shaw's statement, the system timestamp, and your message calling Sophie stable before she went into ventricular tachycardia. His eyes flickered toward Naomi's laptop. The preservation notice had frightened him good. Fear encouraged mistakes. I did not know she would deteriorate during transport, he said. You knew she could. Every cardiac patient can deteriorate. Vanessa was not in danger of deteriorating today. You are not authorized to discuss her case. You paid her cardiology bills. I saw the diagnosis codes. His face drained. Naomi finally looked up. Dr. Cole, I recommend that you stop speaking until you retain independent counsel. I have hospital counsel. Hospital counsel represents the institution. Given the conflict between your personal conduct and Northbridge liability, that may not continue. He looked at me. Elena, call off the legal threats. Our daughter is having open-heart surgery because you took away the room where it was supposed to happen. I said I would reschedule her for Monday. In my experience, Monday never came. Again, the truth of my previous life slipped too close to the surface. He frowned. What does that mean? It means I no longer accept your promises as protection. A surgical liaison entered the waiting room. Mrs. Cole. My heart stopped. She approached me quickly. They are on bypass. Dr. Ortega found more scar tissue than expected, but the repair is proceeding. Is she stable? At the moment, yes. I gripped the back of a chair. Adrian asked the liaison a series of technical questions. She answered him politely until he identified himself as Sophie's father and a cardiothoracic specialist. Then her manner changed. Dr. Cole, clears throat. The family requested that clinical updates be directed to Mrs. Cole. I am entitled to information. You will receive information consistent with the legal authorization on file. He looked at me. You removed me. I limited access until the conflict is reviewed. You cannot erase me as her father. I am not erasing you. I am preventing you from using your title to overrule her doctors. His voice dropped. You are enjoying this. The accusation was so familiar that, for a moment, I saw our kitchen instead of the waiting room. Every time I objected to his absence, spending, or decisions, he accused me of enjoying conflict. It allowed him to treat my reaction as the injury and his behavior as background. No, I said. I am terrified. The difference is that terror no longer makes me obedient. He left the waiting room. Naomi watched him go. He is going to get worse before he understands he cannot win this by authority. He may never understand. That is not required. She opened in document. I found the transfers. My stomach tightened. Naomi had obtained statements from the joint account after I authorized emergency review for 14 months. Adrian had sent money to a limited liability company called VLR Consulting. The amounts varied from $5,000 to $22,000. The company's registered address belonged to Vanessa. The payments totaled $286,000. There were also charges for a furnished apartment, jewelry, private travel, and medical consultations. One transfer memo read, "Future planning." What was the money for? Naomi asked. I do not know. Did Adrian have authority to move these funds? Up to $25,000 per transaction. He kept each one below the dual signature threshold. Of course he had. He knew hospital systems, but he also understood household controls. He had not been careless. He had been confident I would never look. My phone displayed an incoming call from Miriam Alvarez. I answered. Elena, she said, I received a message that you invoked beneficiary review. I did. Is Sophie alive? She is in surgery. Miriam had met her only twice, but her voice softened. I'm sorry. Do not be sorry yet. I need you to examine Northbridge. I already pulled the debt file. How bad? Worse than reported. Crestline Health Group missed 2 covenant tests. They refinanced short-term payroll obligations through a related entity. Patient safety claims are increasing. If today's incident qualifies as an undisclosed regulatory event, Hartwell's right of first offer could activate. Can we buy one hospital without taking the entire Crestline network? The collateral package includes Northbridge Medical Holdings, the physician practices, and the real estate. We could acquire the whole Northbridge entity. How much? Between 500 and 600 million, depending on liabilities. Naomi looked at me. Even for Hartwell, that was not a casual purchase. My trust was substantial, but most of it was invested. The acquisition would require lender participation, institutional partners, and approval from a committee that had not seen me lead a transaction in years. What would we need? I asked. A material breach, immediate access to diligence, and a credible operating plan. Start building one. Elena, you are sitting outside your daughter's surgery. Yes, you do not have to decide this today. I decided it 7 years ago when I wrote the clause. That is not the same thing. No, today it is personal. Miriam was silent. I knew what she feared. Personal acquisitions were dangerous. Anger distorted value. Revenge made people pay too much. I'm not asking Hartwell to buy a building so I can fire my husband, I said. I am asking you to determine whether a hospital that lets an administrator alter pediatric triage for his romantic partner is still safe to operate under its current owners. That is a better question. Bring me the answer. I will. The call ended. Naomi closed the bank statement. You are serious? Yes, buying Northbridge will not automatically prove malpractice. I know it will expose Hartwell to every hidden problem inside that hospital. I know you may lose money. I know then why. I looked at the surgical doors because in my previous life, I tried to punish one man after the system had already erased what he did. Naomi studied me. I expected her to ask what I meant. Instead, she said, then this time we preserve the system. For hours after Sophie entered surgery, Dr. Ortega walked into the waiting room. His cap was still on. A line marked his forehead where the protective shield had rested. I stood so quickly my chair fell backward. She is alive, he said. The room tilted. I pressed both hands over my mouth. He continued speaking, but for several seconds I heard only those 3 words. She is alive. The conduit had been almost completely obstructed. Scar tissue compressed one pulmonary artery. The surgery took longer because they had to reconstruct more than expected. But the repair is good, he said. Her heart came off bypass. She had one rhythm episode that responded to pacing. She is going to the cardiac ICU. Can I see her? In about 20 minutes. Adrian entered as Dr. Ortega explained the recovery risks. He listened with a physician's concentration, asking appropriate questions. For a few minutes, I saw the man who had once sat beside Sophie's incubator and cried when she survived her first surgery. That man had existed. His existence did not erase what he had become. When Dr. Ortega left, Adrian reached for me. I stepped away. She made it, he said. Yes. His eyes were wet. Elena, I was wrong about the timing. The words sounded almost like accountability. Then he added, but you were reckless to transfer her in that condition. There it was. His regret had limits. He could admit the outcome surprised him, but not that his choice had caused the danger. She was in that condition before the transfer, I said. We do not know that. Her nurse documented it. Northbridge documentation is incomplete because you changed it. His expression closed. I came here to see my daughter, not fight with you. You filed a court motion while she was in surgery to stop you from doing something like this again. Saving her, excluding me. I looked at him for a long time. You excluded yourself. The remote court hearing began at 4 o'clock. I joined from a private consultation room. Naomi sat beside me. Adrian appeared from another room with his attorney. A family law specialist the hospital administrator had apparently helped him contact. The judge reviewed the filings. Adrian's attorney argued that I had removed a medically fragile child from a leading cardiac center without the father's agreement. Naomi responded with the transfer recommendation, the ambulance arrhythmia record, and Dr. Ortega's surgical findings. Then she submitted Adrian's professional conflict. The judge looked toward his screen. Dr. Cole, did you participate in changing your daughter's scheduled operation? I approved a 48-hour delay based on resource allocation. Did another patient receive the operating room? Yes. Was that patient someone with whom you have a personal relationship? Adrian paused. His attorney whispered something. Yes. What kind of personal relationship? Another pause. An intimate relationship. The words entered the court record. In my previous life, he had denied the affair for months. Now he admitted it before sunset because his own motion required an answer. The judge's expression did not change. Did the treating surgeon agree that your daughter could safely wait? Dr. Shah had concerns. That was not my question. No. Did you disclose your conflict to the hospital's ethics office? No. Did you alter the urgency classification? I exercised departmental authority to revise it. The judge removed her glasses. I am denying your request to compel the child's return to Northbridge. Pending further review, Mrs. Cole will have temporary authority over medical decisions related to this cardiac episode. Neither parent may remove the child from Children's East without approval from the treating team. Adrian's attorney objected. The judge continued. I am also appointing a guardian ad litem and directing both parties to preserve all communications concerning the surgical schedule. Naomi muted the call. He put himself under a preservation order. I stared at Adrian's image on the screen. He finally looked afraid that evening. I saw Sophie in the cardiac ICU. Machines surrounded her. A breathing tube covered her mouth. Lines entered her neck, arms, and chest. Her skin was gray beneath the lights. For one terrible second, the room became the one from my previous life. Then her monitor beeped. Her heart continued. I sat beside her and placed one finger in her palm. Even sedated, she closed her hand around it. I am here, I whispered. I am not leaving. Outside the room, Adrian waited. I allowed him to enter for 10 minutes after the ICU social worker explained the boundaries. He stood at the opposite side of the bed. He touched Sophie's foot beneath the blanket. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said. She could not hear him, or perhaps she could. I did not interrupt. His apology belonged to her, even if she was not ready to receive it. When the 10 minutes ended, he followed me into the corridor. Elena, we need to go home and talk. I'm not going home with you. You need clothes. Naomi arranged them. You cannot stay here forever. I stayed in hospitals for 8 years while you went home. That is not fair. It is accurate. He rubbed his face. I ended things with Vanessa. I felt nothing, not relief, not victory, not even anger, only clarity. You did not choose us, I said. You lost access to her. Elena, I made one terrible decision. No, you had an affair. You hid money. You lied about equipment maintenance. You overrode Sophie's surgeon. You changed her chart. You tried to stop her transfer. You filed against me while she was in surgery. Which one is the single decision? His shoulders lowered. I was under pressure. So was her pulmonary artery. He flinched. Good. Some truth should hurt. I love Sophie. Then learn to love her without controlling the people protecting her. What about us? I looked through the ICU window at our daughter's small body. There is no us. You are angry. I am finished. That is not the same thing. It is the only reason I can stand here without screaming. He reached into his pocket and placed my wedding ring on the windowsill between us. Maya must have released the evidence envelope after Naomi photographed its contents. You left this. I know. Take it. No, Elena. Clear's throat. I wore it while you paid another woman's rent. I wore it while you taught our daughter that she could be postponed. It belongs to the life you chose. He closed his hand around the ring. His phone rang. He checked the screen. Vanessa. He declined the call. Then it rang again and again. I walked away before he could show me another performance of choosing too late. In the family lounge, Miriam had sent a preliminary report. Northbridge had not disclosed 3 patient safety complaints to its lender. One involved altered surgical scheduling, one involved retaliation against a nurse, the third involved a child whose procedure had been delayed after a donor intervention. My hands became cold. Sophie was not the first. At the bottom of the report, Miriam had written, if the complaints are substantiated, the covenant breach is material. Crestline's lender is willing to discuss a sale. I called her. What do they need from us? Proof strong enough that they cannot ignore the breach. I have one case. We need the pattern. Then we find it. Elena, the lender will move fast if this becomes public. So will other buyers. Prepare an offer. The investment committee has not approved it. Call the committee. They will ask whether you are emotionally capable of leading this. I looked at Sophie through the glass. Tell them emotion is why I noticed the problem. Evidence is why they should invest. Miriam exhaled. I'll schedule the meeting. One more thing. What? Do not call this project Northbridge. What should we call it? I looked at the child who had the life she was once denied. Project Monday. Because Adrian had told me she could wait until Monday. Because in this life, I would make sure no child's survival depended on a promise that never arrived. Sophie woke the next morning. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused beneath the sedation. The breathing tube was gone. A soft oxygen mask covered her nose and mouth. I leaned over the bed. Hi. She blinked. Mom. Her voice was almost soundless. I'm here. Did they fix it? Yes. She closed her eyes again. A tear moved into her hair. Did Dad come? Yes. Did he leave? The question was not whether Adrian loved her. It was whether love had stayed. He is outside the unit, I said. You decide when you want to see him. Her eyes opened. I can decide? Yes. She thought about it. Not today. I kissed her forehead. Not today. The ICU social worker documented the request when Adrian arrived. I told him through the glass, she does not want to visit today. She is 8. She is awake, oriented, and frightened. You influenced her. I gave her a choice. Children do not make decisions about parental access. They make decisions about who feels safe beside their hospital bed. His face tightened. You are turning her against me. No, I am refusing to translate your behavior into something easier for you to hear. He looked through the glass at Sophie for the first time. He did not push past me. He sat in the corridor and waited for 3 hours. Sophie never asked for him. By noon, the story reached the media. The headline appeared first on a local health industry website. Heiress removes child from hospital, threatens acquisition after surgery dispute. The article described me as a former attorney and beneficiary of the Hartwell family fortune. It claimed I had used private transportation to obtain preferential treatment at Children's East after Northbridge. Physicians recommended observation. Vanessa was quoted anonymously as a patient familiar with the incident. She said a powerful family was attempting to punish a hospital for following neutral medical guidelines. I read the article twice. Naomi watched me. Do not respond emotionally. I am not emotional. You are holding the phone hard enough to break it. I set it down. Where did they get the transfer information? The court filing is sealed. Northbridge schedule is confidential. Someone inside the hospital leaked it. Vanessa, probably. She wants me to disclose Sophie's records so she can argue about details. Yes, I will not. Good. I opened a blank document. We released a statement 40 minutes later. It contained no diagnosis, photographs, or surgical details. It stated only that an urgent pediatric patient's confirmed procedure had been reassigned after an administrator with a personal conflict changed the risk classification against the treating surgeon's recommendation. It confirmed that legal preservation notices had been issued and that the child received emergency surgery after deteriorating during transfer. At the bottom, I added one sentence myself. No family should need wealth, influence, or legal training to prevent a personal relationship from determining who receives care. The response spread faster than Vanessa's article. Parents began sharing stories. A woman named Rebecca Hale wrote that her son's orthopedic surgery had been postponed twice after a major donor requested the same specialist. A retired nurse posted that Northbridge administrators routinely labeled schedule changes operational to avoid ethics review. An anonymous resident claimed that Adrian had punished physicians who challenged his decisions. Most allegations were vague. Some would be false, but a pattern was forming. Miriam sent investigators to interview former employees under confidentiality agreements. Naomi obtained a court order allowing an independent forensic firm to copy the relevant Northbridge servers. The hospital's general counsel objected. The judge denied the objection because Adrian had placed the dispute before the court himself. Every move he had made to control the story widened the path to the truth. On Sophie's third post-operative day, Maya called me from a number I did not recognize. "I'm on administrative leave," she said. "Why?" "They said I violated procedure by printing the transfer record. You printed documents for an authorized patient transfer." "I know." "Did they put the reason in writing?" "Yes." "Send it to Naomi." Maya hesitated. "There is something else." "What?" "I kept personal shift notes." Nurses often recorded brief observations during busy periods before entering formal chart notes. Personal notes were not a substitute for the medical record, but they could establish timing. "Are they accurate?" "Yes." "Did you alter them after the incident?" "No." "Do they contain patient information unrelated to Sophie?" "Some." "Do not send them to me. Naomi will arrange secure review." Maya lowered her voice. At 4:17 that morning, Sophie's oxygen saturation dropped to 78. She had 6 beats of ventricular tachycardia. I notified Dr. Shah. "Was it charted?" "I entered it. When I checked after the transfer, the event was still there, but the alert flag was gone." "Who removed it?" "I cannot see that level of audit history." "We can." Another record, another choice someone believed would disappear. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Maya was silent for a moment. "Because my sister died in a hospital where everyone knew the doctor was dangerous and everyone waited for someone else to speak first." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry. So am I. We will protect you as much as we can. I know you cannot promise that." "No." "Thank you for not pretending." After the call, I stood beside Sophie's window. She was sitting in a chair coloring a picture of the stuffed fox. A physical therapist helped her lift one foot at a time. I had spent years promising safety I could not control. Now I understood that honesty was not the opposite of hope. It was the foundation of trust. The forensic audit produced its first result that evening. Sophie's original classification had been entered by Dr. Shah at 5:31 a.m., urgent progressive conduit obstruction, recurrent arrhythmia, surgical intervention recommended. Within current operating day at 6:39 a.m. Adrian opened the note at 6:41. He used director-level override privileges at 6:42. The classification changed: semi-urgent patient, clinically stable, intervention may be deferred 48 to 72 hours at 6:43. Vanessa's procedure moved into operating room 4 at 6:45. Adrian sent Vanessa a message. The forensic team could not access the content without a separate order, but the timestamp existed at 6:47. Vanessa replied at 7:02. Adrian texted me that equipment maintenance had delayed Sophie's case. The sequence was almost elegant lie alteration reward cover story. Naomi filed for access to Adrian's communications relating to the surgery. His attorney argued marital privacy. The judge ordered limited production because the messages concerned medical decision-making and hospital administration. Adrian called me that night. I answered because all communication was now recorded through a court-approved parenting application. "Sophie wants her blue blanket," he said. "I brought it from the house. You entered the house. It is still legally my residence." I changed the security code. The property manager let Naomi's assistant in after reviewing the deed. A pause. "You took files from my office." "I took my personal tax documents, Sophie's records, and copies of our financial statements. You had no right to search my things." "I did not search. Your transfers to Vanessa were in the joint account." His breathing changed. "Those payments were loans to her consulting company. She helped with donor strategy. Northbridge already paid her a salary. It was private advisory work." "Then you will have invoices." He said nothing. I continued. "Sophie does not need anything else from the house." "What about you?" "I have what I need." "You cannot be serious about divorce." The petition was filed yesterday. His silence lasted so long that I checked whether the call had ended. "You filed while she was in surgery." "Yes." "How could you make that decision at a time like this?" "You made your decision at 6:42 in the morning." "That is not the same." "It is exactly the same. We both decided what we were willing to risk. You risked our daughter to protect Vanessa. I ended a marriage that was no longer safe. I did not protect Vanessa. You moved her into Sophie's operating room. She was threatening to go to the board. There it was not a medical explanation, a motive. I kept my voice neutral. Threatening to tell them what? He realized too late that the parenting application retained every message and call. This conversation is about Sophie. You introduced Vanessa. I am ending the call. Good night, Adrian. I saved the recording. The next morning, the court ordered production of the messages. Vanessa had deleted several. Adrian had not. Perhaps he believed his phone was protected. Perhaps arrogance was simply another form of poor record management. The messages began 6 weeks before the surgery. Vanessa, you promised I would not have to wait behind everyone else. Adrian, I cannot move a pediatric emergency for an elective closure. Vanessa, then stop calling me your future when your wife still gets everything first. Adrian, Elena does not get everything. Vanessa, she has your name, your house, your daughter, and every public part of you. Adrian, I am handling it. Vanessa, my procedure happens before the gala. You said you would prove I was not second. 3 days before Sophie's operation. Vanessa, if you choose her again, I will tell Mesa you falsified the donor projections and tell Elena where you spend Thursday nights. Adrian, do not threaten me. Vanessa, I am asking you to keep one promise. The morning of the schedule change. Adrian, I moved it. Or 4 at 10. Vanessa, Sophie's thought. Adrian, she can wait until Monday. Vanessa, you finally chose us. Adrian, do not make me regret this. Vanessa, I won't. I love you at 6:47. Vanessa, thank you for proving it. I read the messages in Naomi's office. The words did not hurt like discovering an affair. They hurt because of how ordinary they were. No dramatic conspiracy, no sudden madness. Vanessa wanted proof. Adrian wanted silence. They selected the person least able to protest, an 8-year-old child under oxygen. Naomi closed the file. We can use the medical portions in the custody case and the professional review. The romantic messages may remain sealed. I do not need the public to read every declaration of love. You may need enough to establish motive. Use what is necessary. You are protecting him. No, I am protecting Sophie from growing up inside an internet archive of her father choosing his mistress over her. Naomi nodded. That afternoon, I attended the Hartwell Investment Committee meeting by video from a conference room at Children's East. 12 people appeared on the screen. Some had worked with my mother. Some remembered me as a 28-year-old lawyer who could read a hospital balance sheet faster than senior partners. Others knew me only as the beneficiary who stopped attending meetings after her daughter's 3rd hospitalization. Miriam presented the financial case. Northbridge held valuable real estate, strong specialty practices, and a regional patient network. It also carried hidden liabilities, weak governance, and a possible pattern of scheduling manipulation connected to donor influence. The proposed purchase price was $524 million subject to liability adjustments. Hartwell would provide $180 million in equity. A bank consortium would finance the rest. The committee chair, Thomas Bell, looked at me. This acquisition could consume most of the healthcare fund's available capital. Yes, you have a personal conflict. Yes, you are currently in litigation against the institution. Yes, why should we trust your judgment? Do not. Several members shifted. I continued. Trust the debt agreement. Trust the forensic audit. Trust the undisclosed claims, the insurance reserve gap, and the lender's willingness to sell before regulatory action destroys value. And your personal motivation. My personal motivation identified the risk. It does not determine the price. What if the hospital cannot be repaired? Then we do not buy it. What if another buyer offers more? Let them. What if removing the current leadership causes physician departures? Any physician who leaves because surgical priority can no longer be traded for personal favors is a departure we can survive. Thomas leaned back. You have been away from transactions for years. I have spent those years reading consent forms, claims notices, procedure codes, insurance denials, clinical studies, and hospital policies while keeping a medically complex child alive. I did not stop understanding healthcare because I stopped billing by the hour. No one spoke. I placed one document on the table in front of my camera. It was the original Northbridge Restructuring Agreement Section 14.3 drafted by me. If Northbridge concealed a material patient safety event, Hartwell has the right to match any debt purchase and convert the debt into controlling equity. The lender has confirmed the trigger may apply. I am asking you to authorize diligence and a binding offer at a price supported by the liabilities. Thomas glanced at Miriam. And how much of your own trust interest are you willing to risk? All voting units allocated to me. The room changed. That represented the majority of my financial security outside the marital estate. Naomi had warned me not to offer it. Miriam had advised a cap, but I knew committees. They did not need to see that I was angry. They needed to see that I accepted the same risk I was asking them to take. Thomas looked at me for a long time. You would put your inheritance behind this. It was never meant to be a museum. The committee approved the offer 9 votes to 3. Afterward, Miriam called me privately. You frightened them. They should be frightened. You frightened me. That is less useful. She almost laughed. Crestline's lender wants proof of a material breach by tomorrow. The audit log is not enough. They want evidence of a pattern or concealment by senior management. We have Maya's notes and the prior complaints. Complaints are allegations. What about the compliance department? We requested records. Northbridge says there are none. I remembered the retired nurse's public post. Then I remembered a name from the old restructuring file, Evelyn Brooks, former chief compliance officer. She had resigned 6 months earlier. I found her through an alumni directory. When I called, she answered. On the 4th ring, I wondered when Hartwell would contact me. She said, you knew. I know what the debt agreement says. Did Northbridge conceal patient safety events? Yes. Do you have proof? I sent 3 reports to the board's audit committee. They instructed legal to classify them as privileged employment matters instead of reportable safety events. Do copies exist? I retained proof that the reports were delivered. I did not take patient files. Would you speak to our investigators under whistleblower protection? We will arrange it. She was quiet. Is your daughter alive? Yes, I am glad. Why did you resign? Because I discovered that the people responsible for enforcing the rules believed rules were reputation problems. Evidence arrived 6 hours later. Board receipt confirmations, emails discussing how to avoid lender notification, a memorandum warning that donor interventions and executive overrides had compromised surgical scheduling. Adrian's name appeared twice. Vanessa's appeared 4 times. The lender declared a covenant breach the next morning. Crestline agreed to enter exclusive negotiations with Hartwell. The acquisition was not complete, but the door was open. Northbridge Board summoned me to a private meeting that afternoon. I left Sophie with her physical therapist and returned to the hospital for the first time since the transfer. Security officers met me at the entrance. One of them was the same man who had removed me from the scheduling desk in my previous life. He did not recognize the history written across my face. Mrs. Cole, he said, you are restricted from patient care areas. I am here for the board meeting. He checked his tablet. I do not see your name. A black car stopped behind me. Miriam stepped out carrying a leather folder. The hospital's general counsel hurried through the doors. Ms. Alvarez, he said, we were not expecting Hartwell representatives. You should have read the lender notice. Miriam replied. The counsel looked at me. This is a confidential board discussion. Mrs. Cole's personal litigation creates a conflict.